90,000 people are standing. Nobody is breathing. One player walks up to a ball 12 yards from goal. The goalkeeper shifts left, then right, then left again. The entire stadium is silent in a way that 90,000 people should not physically be able to be silent. You could hear a coin drop 3 sections away. 2 seconds. That is all it takes. And somewhere inside those 2 seconds, the collected emotional weight of an entire country either collapses into the grass or explodes into the sky. Why? Why can 22 people chasing a ball across a grass rectangle produce feelings stronger than most of the things that actually happen in real life? Why do grown adults weep over this? Why do total strangers who have never exchanged a single word throw their arms around each other in the street after a goal? Here's the twist. The answer has almost nothing to do with soccer, and it has everything to do with what human beings have needed from each other for a very, very long time. And yes, this applies even if you think soccer is boring. Especially if you think soccer is boring, because what you are about to find out has nothing to do with the sport. It has to do with you. Let's start with something that happened in 1969 that most people have never even heard of. 2 countries, El Salvador and Honduras, went to war. The official cause was a land dispute. The real catalyst, the thing that lit the match, was a soccer match. 3 World Cup qualifying games between the 2 nations played out over the course of a few tense weeks, produced riots, diplomatic incidents, severed relations, and eventually a full military conflict that killed thousands of people. History remembers it by a name that sounds like a joke, until you read the casualty numbers. The football war, a game, an actual war over a game. At first, that sounds completely insane, but once you understand what soccer is quietly doing to the human brain, it stops sounding insane and starts sounding almost inevitable. So here is what is really happening when you watch a match. The moment you identify with a team, your team, a very specific thing shifts inside your skull. Researchers who study sports fans discovered something strange. People do not experience their team as an external object they happen to be observing. They experience their team as an extension of their own body, a limb they cannot see, but can absolutely feel. When your team wins, your testosterone levels rise. Your self-esteem climbs. Your confidence in totally unrelated parts of your life goes up. You walk taller to work the next morning, and you have no idea why. When your team loses, the whole machine runs in reverse. Cortisol spikes, mood craters. Some studies have found that domestic incidents actually increase in cities after the local team drops an important match. Think about that. You did not play. You were sitting on a couch with a bowl of chips, and your body responded as if something significant had happened to you personally. Because as far as your brain is concerned, it did. This is called identity fusion, and it is not unique to soccer. But soccer produces it more reliably, more intensely, and across more cultures than almost any other sport on the surface of the earth. To understand why, we have to travel much further back than 1969. For the overwhelming majority of human history, survival did not depend on individual talent or individual intelligence. It depended on the group. It depended on belonging to a tribe that would share its resources, defend its territory, and keep you breathing through the parts of existence that no single person could survive alone. So the brain evolved to make belonging feel essential, because it was. And the brain evolved to make tribal competition feel urgent, almost life or death, because it was exactly that. Your tribe versus another tribe was not entertainment. It was not a Saturday afternoon distraction. It was a cold, zero-sum calculation with direct consequences for whether you ate that winter, whether you slept safely, whether your children made it to adulthood. And here is the uncomfortable part. That ancient system is still running right now. Fully powered, inside a brain that now lives in a world of streaming subscriptions, open plan offices, and grocery delivery apps. So when 80,000 people wearing the same jersey watch their team walk out to face a hated rival, that old system does not stay quiet. It activates, not because anyone in the building is in actual physical danger, but because the brain recognizes the shape of the thing. Us, them, stakes, outcome. It is not watching a game. It is running a very, very old program on very new hardware. Now here is where soccer, specifically, becomes fascinating. Most major sports lean on high scores. Basketball games end 110 to 104. American football drips points across 4 quarters. The brain gets a steady, comfortable trickle of resolution, little reward after little reward. Soccer refuses to do that. A soccer match can grind on for 90 full minutes with almost nothing happening, and then detonate in the final 10 seconds. A final score of 1-0 is completely normal. 0-0 happens constantly. Entire games, entire seasons, entire national dreams get decided by a single moment that arrives without warning after an hour and a half of unbroken tension. By any rational calculation of entertainment value, this should make soccer boring. A sport with this few scoring events should be far less popular than sports that manufacture more action per minute. Instead, soccer is the single most watched sport in the entire history of the human species. Why? For the same reason a slot machine is more compelling than a vending machine. For the same reason a thriller, where nothing happens for an hour and then everything happens at once, grips you harder than a story where the events are spread out evenly. Americans cracked this code with movies. Soccer cracked it with 90 minutes of sustained anxiety that somehow feels better than relief, uncertainty, compressed possibility. The electric feeling that everything could change in a single second, and that the danger never once lets up for the entire duration. Here is the neurological punchline. Dopamine does not fire at certainty. It fires at the anticipation of an uncertain reward. And 90 minutes of unbroken uncertainty, with tribal identity riding on the outcome, produces one of the most intense dopamine experiences available to a human being who is not using controlled substances. And then, at last, the goal. A single goal in soccer carries a weight that a basket in basketball simply cannot, because it has been building for so agonizingly long, because it was so wildly uncertain, because the brain has been running an anticipation loop for so many minutes that when the resolution finally arrives, the release is enormous. It floods. Researchers who measured brain activity during goal celebrations found activation patterns strikingly similar to the response the brain produces when a person falls in love. Not exactly like it, but similar. Close enough to matter. So, which team do you support? Because whatever your honest answer is, you already know this feeling. The one where a goal goes in and your body reacts a full beat before your conscious mind has even processed what just occurred. You are on your feet before you decided to stand. That is not enthusiasm. That is a neurological event. Now let's talk about something that does not get discussed nearly enough. The people inside a soccer stadium who are complete strangers to one another. Really think about what is happening in that bowl of concrete and light. 50,000 people who have never met, who do not know a single one of each other's names, who may share nothing else in common in their entire lives, are experiencing one enormous emotion in near perfect synchrony. They rise at the same instant. They groan at the same instant. They sing the same songs in the same breath. They ride joy and devastation along the exact same timeline as one organism. Anthropologists have a name for this feeling, but honestly, the name does not matter. What matters is that you have almost certainly felt it yourself. At a concert, in a church, at a funeral where everyone in the room broke at the same moment. That feeling of being dissolved into something far larger than yourself, of emotion moving through a crowd like a current through water. It was first documented in religious ceremonies. Communities gathering, moving together, breathing together, feeling something that no lone individual could ever generate on their own. Soccer is one of the last places on Earth where enormous populations reliably still experience this, and the brain treats it as profoundly, achingly meaningful, because for nearly all of human history, experiences that felt exactly like this, the whole group moving together, every emotion aligned, individual identity briefly and blissfully suspended, those were the precise moments that made a tribe feel real. A person standing alone is vulnerable. A person standing inside a tribe, moving with the tribe, feeling what the tribe feels, is safe, connected, and folded into something that stretches far beyond their own short lifespan. The stadium hands people that gift, even if they drove there separately. even if they work completely different jobs, even if they disagree about absolutely everything the moment those 90 minutes are over. Here is a detail that makes the soccer as tribe idea suddenly very concrete. Studies have found that people are measurably more likely to help a stranger who happens to be wearing the same team's jersey, more likely to trust them, more likely to feel an instant, wordless connection with them before a single syllable has been exchanged. A shirt, a piece of colored fabric. That is all it takes to switch on thousands of years of tribal circuitry. Have you ever been in a foreign country, thousands of miles from home, and spotted a total stranger wearing your team's jersey and instantly felt like you knew something important and true about that person? Like a shortcut to a familiarity that normally takes months of real life to build? That is not your imagination playing tricks. That is your brain running an ancient recognition system on brand new data. Now, why does losing hurt so much? This is the part most people have never fully reckoned with. It is not disappointment. Disappointment is what you feel when a restaurant gets your order wrong, or when your flight slips 40 minutes late, or when a show you liked gets canceled before the finale. This is not that. This is a different animal entirely. What a soccer fan feels after a genuinely painful loss, elimination from a tournament, a goal conceded in the final seconds of extra time, a penalty shootout that goes horribly wrong is far closer to grief. Actual grief, with a physiological profile to match, right down to the chemistry in the blood. Because if your team is an extension of your own identity, then your team losing is not something that happened to a group of distant men in shorts. It is something that happened to you. Your group was defeated. Your tribe lost status. And in the ancient calculus, the brain is still stubbornly running. That means something real. It means something that has to be processed. Which is exactly why soccer fans do not simply get over it and move on. They replay it in their heads. They dissect it. They argue about it. They mourn it, sometimes for days on end. Picture a stickman who swore to himself, out loud, that he would not care this time. He is now sitting in total silence, staring at a blank wall. He cared. He always cares. Now here is the thing that ties everything else together. The reason soccer specifically became the dominant sport across almost every culture on the planet. More than 190 countries, across every economic level imaginable. In places with no facilities at all, and in places with billion-dollar stadiums. Soccer requires almost nothing. A ball, a patch of open space, 2 goals, which can be rocks, or a pair of shoes, or 2 school bags dropped in the dirt, and any number of players, from 2 to 50. It was always accessible, in dense cities and in empty fields, in wealthy nations, and in the poorest corners of the earth. The barrier to entry was effectively zero, and it stayed there. And precisely because it spread everywhere, soccer became a shared language. A Brazilian, a Moroccan, and a Japanese person who cannot exchange one sentence in a common tongue can sit shoulder to shoulder and follow the exact same match with the exact same emotional understanding. The rules are simple enough to grasp in minutes. The moments that truly matter are unmistakable to anyone with eyes. Soccer became the single largest shared cultural framework in all of human history. More people on this earth follow soccer than follow any single religion, any political system, or any cultural tradition ever devised. That is not a sports statistic. That is an anthropological fact. And what soccer is doing in every one of those places, across all of those wildly different languages and histories and circumstances, is exactly, precisely the same thing. It is handing people a tribe. It is handing them an identity that outlasts their individual life. It is handing them rituals that bind them to strangers. It is handing them a reason to feel enormous things collectively in a modern world that increasingly demands they feel everything alone. Because here is the real problem with modern life that nobody ever mentions in the same breath as sports. Humans evolved in groups of roughly 150 people. Everyone knew everyone. Status was visible. Belonging was immediate and unquestioned. Connection was simply constant, like the air. Today, most people live in cities packed with millions of strangers. They interact with glowing screens far more than with human faces. They spend enormous stretches of time technically surrounded by other humans, yet not actually connected to a single one of them. The brain that was built for a tribe of 150 is now desperately trying to navigate a world of 8 billion. And it is lonely in a way that is structurally, maddeningly difficult to fix. Soccer does not fix it, let's be honest about that. But for 90 minutes, it manages to do something the modern world almost never pulls off. It makes the tribe feel real again. It makes belonging feel undeniable. It gives 50,000 strangers a reason to throw their arms around one another. And the brain, which has been quietly searching for exactly this since the moment it arrived in a world far too large and far too anonymous for its original design, responds the only way it was ever going to respond, with everything it has. For thousands of years, human beings gathered around fires. They told stories about the hunt, about rivals, about victories. They mourned the ones who did not make it back through the dark. They sang together. They moved together. They felt together the things that a person alone simply cannot feel. The fire looks different now. It is a floodlit pitch glowing at night. It is a television bolted to the wall of a bar where everyone is a stranger right up until the match kicks off. It is a phone screen showing the same goal to 100 million people at the exact same second. But the people gathered around that fire are doing precisely what people have always done. They are finding each other. They are saying, without ever using words, I am here. I am part of this. I belong to something bigger than myself. That is not a sports fan. That is a human being doing what human beings have always done. So here is the question worth carrying with you when the final whistle blows. If a simple game, a ball, a field, 2 goals can unite millions of strangers across every country, every language, and every century of human history, then what does that tell us about what we actually genuinely need from each other? And how many other ways are we still quietly, desperately searching for it?